We want to recognize and thank G&M Cattle Company for their support of the Beefmaster Banter podcast. We're grateful for breeders who invest in strengthening the Beefmaster community and helping us share valuable conversations each month. If you'd like to spotlight your program and connect with our listeners, sponsorship opportunities are available. Check out the media page on our website and look up our media kit. Well, hello and welcome to the Beefmaster Banter. My name is Hannah Nixon, and I'm so glad to have y'all joining on with us today, along with my co-host, Dr. Lance Bauer, our EVP here at BBU. How's it going today, Lance?
It's great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be back on after a short hiatus of maternity leave.
We're glad to have you back.
I'm not sure if he's serious or not, but I'll hope so. Well, before we jump into today's conversation, I'd like to introduce our guest, Jolene Brown. We're so excited to have Jolene on today. Jolene has spent her career helping farm and ranch families navigate one of agriculture's toughest challenges, which is working together across generations. She's a farmer from Eastern Iowa, a nationally recognized speaker, and a longtime contributor to Successful Farming magazine, and the author of 2 books focused on family business and succession planning. Her practical advice, real-world stories, and sense of humor have made her a sought-after speaker across the country, earning her a place in the National Speakers Association Speaker Hall of Fame. Today, she's on the podcast to share how families can protect not only the future of their operations, but also the relationships that matter most. Jolene, thank you so much for joining us. I'd love for you to give me just a short background that I maybe didn't cover.
Well, you did a lot of it, and I'm tickled to be with you. Thank you so much. Yes, I am a real farmer Brown. I'm still training my husband after many decades. And I said to him, I'm doing the best I can with what I know, and until you start paying me, this is all you're going to get. So I work on the farm as well as he does. And I certainly have chosen to focus on the family business aspect of agriculture. Because what I learned, Hannah, is that we have all kinds of access to production information. The weeds, seeds, breeds, feeds, money, machinery, and marketing, but we're crappy with people. And yet it's the people that do all the production. So my whole purpose of what I do is that the content that is shared through my speaking or my phone calls, consulting, and writing, it will increase their productivity, which increases our profitability. I want them to have some peace of mind. And wouldn't it be something if we could all just sit together happily at a holiday table? And that's why I do what I do.
Gosh, that speaks so much to me, especially in this season of working on a ranch with my husband and his family. And God, we love each other. But you're exactly right. Communication is not a talent of ranchers and farmers. So I appreciate that so much. Well, Jolene, tell us a little bit about your background and how you came into this role.
Well, when I started speaking in the 80s, so I've been at it a long time, it's when the land values had crashed. And there was bankruptcy, foreclosure, suicide, and even murder. The president of my bank was murdered by a farmer. And I just had to find a way to help us separate our self-worth from our net worth, how you build an internal bank account when the external one is gone. And that was the thrust of what I did for many years, is just really honoring the people of agriculture in a way that they could find worthiness again in their work. And then from that, I'd be sitting at these kitchen tables, and I have been at now over 400 kitchen tables of families who have taught me what works and what doesn't. And I want to help them build a business first worthy of transitioning and what it takes to have those benchmarks to know. And then we've got to get the teeth behind our plans. So we must have a good advisory team of an attorney, accountant, and a financial planner. Then we can have the legacy of the land continue.
I respect that.
Yes.
We talk about a lot here at our place that, ideally we'd also have a business manager or an HR department. But I love those 3 to kind of fall back on. You talked a little bit about, building something that's worthy of passing on. Can you talk to me or us a little bit about what, you usually see when you step into, looking at an operation and what you have to do to get it there?
Well, there's 3 things that will kill a family business. And the first is silence. I was at a table with 4 in their 60s. Okay, so they're actually running all the operation. Mom still owns everything, by the way. Dad had passed 3,500 acres of prime ground. They don't even know if she has a will. And they have been building her net worth all of these years, and they're quite concerned. And they finally said to me, would you go talk to mom? And I said, does mom want to talk to me? And she's in assisted living. So I went, and she is sharp as a tack. I call her a whippersnapper. I mean, the stories. And yes, she rode her pony uphill to and from school, and just a hoot to be with. And then she looked at me and she said, my kids want to know what's in my will, but right now I'm not going to tell them because they all come to see me. Well, she told me what's in her will. And I said, Martha, if you carry out and if you kick the bucket today and this takes forward, do you know that they will never talk to each other again? And the business that you have worked hard to help them build up is going to be gone. But while you are of sound mind, there are many other options along the way. And of course, ethically, I cannot go back and tell the next generation what I heard from mom. And so I did say to them, I do not like plan A. So if I were in your shoes today, I'd get plan B and let's go. And so silence is the number one killer, because we fill it with hopes and wishes and aspirations and dreams and complaints and resentment. We do all kinds of things, but address the issue. The other thing that kills a family business is we believe a conversation's a contract. And I'll talk more about that later. But I think we have all learned that if it's not in writing, it does not exist. And then the third thing is, at least 98% or more of every phone call, email, conversation, audience speeches that I have people coming up to me, they share their stories, but they're operating as a family first business. Don't rock the boat. Oh, we don't want to get dad mad. I think there's a will. We just all get along. We love each other. We'll be fine. And they are operating on that hope and a wish that everything's going to be okay. So if people want to operate as a family first, that's okay with me as long as the business can be a hobby. But I have learned if you truly love and honor your family, the way you honor that family is by doing the business right. So I teach them and give them the template tools of what it takes to become a business first family. Let's operate this as a business so that we can still be family. And when we get the tools in place, the peace of mind that can come over the family, the way to deal with conflict or a code of conduct, or how are we going to communicate, what needs to be done at meetings without wasting time. Once we get those tools in place, they find out, hey, we're now operating as a business, and then let's go sit at the table and have lunch together. But we have to learn how to operate as a business, and that's how you honor your family.
Absolutely. I love all of that perspective. I keeps coming directly to me as just, being part of a family operation. And you're exactly right. It's so easy to assume based off of previous conversations, and then, someone forgets, or, opinions change, or mostly emotions change. Right. And so it's complicated.
Yeah.
Jolene, tell me a little bit about, have you ever gotten into an operation or worked with a family that you thought wasn't salvageable?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I was doing the background because I have to know that my work is important to them and is worth our time and our money to involve too. I'm not a money person, okay, but I want actual money facts from the people of their business. So I have permission to talk to their key advisors, their attorney, their accountant, the financial planner, the business manager, whoever I feel needs to give me answers to the questions. And what I discovered with this particular family, because of their debt, because of their way of operating their business, financially, it cannot support another generation. But everybody's thinking, oh yeah, it's going to be fine. We'll have all this in our hands. And then you just take on the debt and you continue. And then that doesn't work out so well. But I've also had younger generations very eager to come back. And I will give you my requirements in a minute before you invite a family member into a business. But they were so eager to come back, and mom and dad are excited to have them back. And this younger generation said, so we need more land. We need bigger equipment. We need this. And mom and dad, since you're the only one with the collateral here, would you go rent, lease, buy, make available, and now mom and dad have all the debt.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not viable either for the next generation. So I have found that I cannot get a senior generation give up control unless I have two things in place. The first is that they have financial security away from the business for the lifestyle and living they deserve. If they have put in years of blood and sweat and tears into the business, they need the assurance, whether it's long-term care, and if they've chosen to self-insure, then you better make sure you have access to assets that cannot be collateralized by the business. Did you hear me? In other words, if they do not have long-term health care insurance, and they are choosing to, whether it is home health care, assisted living, nursing home, that they're going to be paying for it until their assets get down to $2,000. And that's, of course, the benchmark of where the Medicaid and Medicare kicks in for them. They have to look at the reality. And so we can't put them at risk for their care. Now, the advisor that's missing here for them is a financial planner, because that financial planner is the most underutilized, in my opinion, one of the most needed advisors we need on our team. And this is the person who will say, what do you own? What do you owe? How are things titled? What are your beneficiaries? What are your sources of income? And to give them a clearer picture where they stand. That in itself gives great peace of mind. So the one thing is they have to be financially secure, independent from the business, or they won't relinquish control. The second thing is they still need to feel worthy and worthwhile. They need to be needed. I have learned, and I believe, you should never kick a farmer or grower or rancher off the land that is their soul. So what jobs can they still safely do? Why? And they're the wise masters who have ridden the roller coaster and still be a part of it. Now, they don't get to choose their jobs, as I had somebody 93 who thought he should be driving a tractor, but he falls asleep all the time on the tractor. So that's not a job he can still safely do, right? So again, I've got to get those two things in place. And then they have to answer some hard questions. The owners of the assets have to tell me the answer to, do you really want this integrity of the business to continue? And all I want is a yes or a no. I want, well, what's it going to cost? Or we don't know how to do this. Or we got 2 kids in the business and one not, I just want to know, is there some fire in your belly that you want this business to continue? A yes or no. Then the second question I will ask, so when are you going to transition it? Not just the labor and the management. Listen, I'll transition anything today with technology. If I cannot fix it with baling wire, a hammer, or duct tape, have it help me, right? And so I have to make sure that they're going to transition leadership and ownership. What is the plan for that? And then the third question they have to answer is then to whom? This is where we screw up a lot. I write for Successful Farming Magazine, Can Their Problem Be Solved? And one of the ones I think I wrote just a few months ago was where Dad said, now the boys can't get along. They're even undermining each other. There's angry words. They've even gone to hitting each other. And he said, what am I going to do? And I said, well, the good news is you're the problem. And you're also the solution here. So let's talk about leadership and accountability and that kind of thing. But the bottom line there is, you don't have the right people in the business. And I said, do you really want to put people in business together who can't get along, who hit each other, undermine each other, talk bad about each other in town? Do you really want them in business together? And that's when I said, so here are your choices. And we brainstormed what he has control of and what he doesn't have control, and where does accountability play in? So we have to make sure that feeling of worthiness, that feeling of the business is worthy of transitioning, because that third question, to whom? Is it going to be those who are active in the business and understand it and know the work of it? This is why your attorneys, and I certainly encourage this, have operations of the business separate from the land. Operations is anything movable. It's crops, critters, people, machinery. So all the cows, everything, that's all in the things that are movable. That is what you need to be doing this business, and you need the expertise in how to do the business. Then land is over here. They're legally tied together. So land rents to operations, and owners of land get their income from the operations, because I want 100% of operations to be owned by those who know how to operate a business. I have been at way too many tables where we had to reverse the psychology of, we have 5 kids, 2 in the business, 2 not in the business, but I'm going to leave it all to my children equally and they'll all be just fine. And so I said to the 2 in the business, you're fired. I can fire you. I don't need you. I want a return on my investment. I don't want you to invest in the business. And we have people running a business who don't know how to run it. So if I were coming into the business as a younger generation, I would certainly do my utmost to purchase into or receive for sweat equity, or maybe even be gifted parts of operations. And then, of course, to tie them together legally. You must have good legal advice on this.
I can imagine. How often does the element of splitting up operations or trying to keep it all together come into play? Because I know that for a lot of farmers and ranchers, it's so important that they don't split up an operation that they put so much time and effort into, right? And so I'm curious how often that comes into play and how you kind of go about that. I know you kind of touched on that just a little bit.
Um, almost everyone who has children and thinks the business was transitioned by bloodline. So then we get into that, and then we get into in-laws, and then we get into people in the business and not in the business. So when I consult in front of them on the table, because it's not in front of me, I bring 4 tools and I will use them. And part of it is to address this issue. I bring a mirror because most of the people invite me so I will fix somebody else. You know, if they would just say what's on their mind, if they would give up control, you know, if he hadn't married her, we'd be okay. Okay, so let's fix them and we'll be fine. I have to bring up the mirror because I have to work with those at the table, and I have to understand the people of authority at the table. But I always say, just because you don't own anything doesn't mean you're powerless. I'm doing a series of 6 events right now, and it's all for the young and beginning farmers out there. And so we have to understand what we can and can't control. So I bring the mirror to let the people know, okay, this is us, this is what we're doing. Then I have to bring the mirror to reality. Not what you think, not what you hope, not what you wish, but this is where we are at today, the mirror to reality. The second tool I will bring is a box of tissues, because there's always emotion. There's worry or fear or anger or tears or resentment. And when emotion and logic collide, emotion's going to win. So we have to deal with the emotion to get to the logic and do the work. And then I bring a roll of duct tape. It's not just so that they'll be quiet. Sometimes I have to tape them to their chair. There will be somebody at that meeting who says, by golly, this is how it's going to be, wants to stand up and walk out the door. Or somebody else at the table goes, oh, this is getting really hard. I'm going to go get some coffee and cookies. I'll come back in just a little bit. Nope, you got to stay there. And the last tool I bring is a 2x4 board. And sometimes I use it because that's the only thing that's going to wake them up. And so those are my consulting tools. So I am not your traditional coach. I care a great deal. I do so much background before I ever show up. But when I'm there, we have work to get done and let's get started, or I don't come. I don't come for show. And so we have to work on this. So when you asked how many people get into this, having to keep it all together, I said the legacy doesn't have to continue with a family member. I have some really strong businesses who started out probably as family, maybe a grandpa and grandma, and then the next generation, 2 sons usually, and then it went to the 3rd generation. And we got to keep it in the family. Well, they turned it into a hobby is what they do, especially if they don't have governances of ownership separate from operations, right? And once I keep those separate, then we have some things we can do to reward owners and to have non-voting people. There's all kinds of things you can do to reward people, but it comes up all the time, Hannah, of for the sake, this is putting the family before the business. We're not honoring the family. We're going to tear it up. And I had a large operation in a Western state where they had from ocean property to redwoods, where they had, you know, from cow calf to they had a nursery and breed, and they had keep it in the family. So we are now down to having proxies at the meeting for 2-month-old babies who were born.
Oh my gosh.
Because they became owners.
Wow.
The family, right? I know. They can't see your face, Hannah. I can. This happens a lot because we have to keep people working in the best interest of the business who never could get along. This makes absolutely no sense. If you tell me you want this business to continue, when you're going to transition the management, leadership, and ownership, and to whom, then we're going to take a look at the team that can make sure the business can continue and provide the income for the owners because they get a return on their investment. We pay people wrong in agriculture. They should be getting 2 paychecks. If they work in the business from operations, they get a paycheck and fringe benefits, right? they might have health insurance or a pickup or meat, who's a good benefit right now, right? If they own an asset, they get a return on their investment. And so I work on the business and I am an owner. I get 2 checks. When the dividends are cut, if it's a corporation, or membership distribution, compensation is membership ownership, membership of an LLC ownership is compensated, then that's because I'm an owner. That is different than working in the business.
Understood. It sounds to me like there's a very large portion of your role that's more therapy than it is business management. Am I right?
I'm called the Dr. Phil of agriculture.
I
for
saw
the
that.
reason that I don't mince words. But again, I have spent over 80 hours in preparation to ever come on site for a consultation, because I have to meet with some groups. I have to meet with some husbands and wives. I have to meet with some individuals, and I have to put pieces of the puzzles together. And when I arrive, of course, they have the agenda. Exactly what we're going to do is that we're starting with a family meeting, and then we're going to go to the business meeting, and who's going to be at the business meeting. And then we're going to end with the family meeting. And so when I get there, I'm expecting the work to be done, because when I finish with that consultation, and it may be more than one day, because, you know, I've had 23 members of a family all working together, haha, and, and had to deal with that setup. When I finish, I will say within the next 2 weeks, you'll receive a written follow-up from me. It'll be about 20 pages. This is a history of what you have shared with me. Here's who does what, when, and where. Here's what you have said you want to do. Here's who you said who you want to do it, when they're going to do it. Now get to work, and don't you dare call me again. Now, if you have problems implementing what I said, you can call me, but you got the best of what I know. And I want to be the one of last resort. And I consult all over North America and even other countries, because I've spoken in many other countries. So we'll do that by Zoom, or sometimes I go back to the country. They've got to be ready to do the work, and I need to hold them accountable. This is their business. Never, ever will I ever call them. All calls have to be originated by them to me to set up the meeting, to return the information. It has got to be their motivation and not mine.
I understand that. One of the books that you published, Jolene, or that you wrote and published, the Holy Crap, I Married a Farmer. I love that, first off. And personally, I grew up in agriculture, and I think that you would agree that, you know, if you were raised in it, you at least have a slight understanding of how kind of the lifestyle expectation works, where the farm comes first before anything else, right? And then everything else follows after. And I know that's not a one size fits all, but I'm curious, is it harder or easier when you walk into a family operation and you have people that maybe don't have the background like that and are coming in and are foreign to the idea of that mentality, and you know, are just in awe of the fact that, you know, we're putting our blood, sweat, and tears into this, and it's this much of a hassle. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Well, who's to say this is the way that's we've done it has to continue. And what I love is when somebody from outside of agriculture is joining in a unit, that we begin to understand what it is they can bring. And it's not just childcare and take meals out to the field.
Yes.
But what is, so we have to address what is the role of the spouse, if any, in the business, and what does the spouse expect from the business? And that all is preferably done before a ring is on the finger.
Mm-hmm.
But I have had the question in upstate New York from a young daughter-in-law who said to me, Jolene, I just want to know, how long do you have to be married before you get to be family?
That's hard.
And
yeah.
then I get these calls. Does it always have to be this way? And, you know, I'm the one, they're out at dawn, don't get back late at night. They need an IV supper. You know, they're too tired to even eat, and they go to bed and they do the same thing day after day for the sake of providing income for the family. Well, what does the family need? Income is one of the things, yes. But there are other things as well. So the reason I wrote the book, Holy Crap, I Married a Farmer, is I've do a lot of wonderful women in ag events. And I shared, and I asked, is there a tip or a lesson or a story you might share that those who are also your sisters of agriculture can learn from you, so we could learn together? And within just a couple events, I had over 500 turned in. And the fun part with this is I had a call last summer? Yeah, it was last summer. Somebody from New Jersey had been out there working in the agritourism, fruit and vegetable industry. And they have a son who's marrying somebody from the city, meaning New York City, has never been working with customers on a farm before. You pick the intensity of it. And they said, we have an idea. We want to run it by you. We want to do a bridal shower for her, and we want to call it Holy Crap, She's Marrying a Farmer. And they zoomed me in. And I went to that shower. And so we shared things like never learn how to do something you don't want to do for the rest of your life. If you ever hear, I can do it better by myself, let them. If you're ever sent for parts, ask what size vehicle you should drive. So this whole book, but it's not just the joy-filled, fun-filled reality lessons in that book. It's also the insight, because the last chapter is left behind but not alone. And one of the mothers had said, when her husband died, terrible grieving, it just comes at waves. It's just terrible grieving. And she said, but the bills keep coming. And so she had a farm bill for air filters and hydraulic hoses. And she paid it only to find out it was a bogus bill. Somebody had her signature, her bank farm account routing number, and the routing number of the bank cleared out their money account 3:57 p.m. on a Labor Day weekend. So the Friday before Labor Day, cleaned out their account.
Oh my God.
And so what I learned, and it's in this book, from these people, is you never have to do something right away. And don't call the phone number that's on the bill to see if it's the right bill. All the spam calls we get, how that works. Yep. Okay. So this book are joy-filled lessons from our sisters in agriculture. And there's many things that come up. Well, the editor who just called me for something was asking about daycare in our rural owners providing daycare for their employees. And I said, well, I really can't speak to that, but let me tell you what I can speak to, and that is we have to learn how to neighbor again. And I'm blessed with young couples who have joined in my neighborhood, and I have to teach them how to neighbor. They don't know that the best place to trick or treat is your neighbor in the country, because they don't just give you goodies, they give you clothes and art supplies and all kinds of things. Just got a call to make sure we're going to be home before you come. And they don't know that money is never exchanged. If you can help, you help. So I have a huge garden. It's a 40 by 80, and purslane is a weed, which is the bane of my existence. And yes, I know it's edible, so come get all you want. But I had a neighbor text me and said, what are you doing to keep the purslane out of your garden this year? Because I had 3 5-gallon buckets of organic purslane just from some of the rows I have. And I said, so here's the deal. I'll come pull yours for 2 hours if you come with me and pull mine for 2 hours. Let's neighbor. So this is how you build support. The people who feel isolated on the farm because the farm works around them, they don't understand it, or they're told, don't worry your pretty little head about it, I'll take care of things. Okay, you don't need to know this. Man, that is a red flag. And I can't tell you the number of times we've called domestic abuse hotline because of stuff going on the farm. It is not okay. And so the relationships to your God, to your spouse, to your immediate, to your children, and then your immediate family, there is an order of that, and you get to choose that order. But how many times does the spouse or the children feel they're not even on the list? So I was working with another phone call. I get these crazy phone calls, and the older fella says, yep, neighbor's land's coming up for sale. I'm going to buy it. I said, how old are you? Well, I'm 74. Why do you need more land? Well, I can get it. I can pay for it. And I had talked to Mom because she was the first one who reached out. And I said to him, so when is it her turn? She's worked in town all these years. You can have health insurance. You have money for the family to live on, even help supported some of your past purchases by her income. She's retiring. So when is it her turn? Have you found out what her goals are? It may not be to go into debt again to buy another farm. So it's fascinating to me. It's exciting to me because there is a better way to do a lot of these things. And through I do a lot of speaking to all types of organizations, associations, corporations, our farmers, growers, and ranchers. And if I can reach them at that state and they give me enough time to present the topic, and if I get a full day, I will bring in a panel of key advisors, an attorney, an accountant, a financial planner. I'll serve as the family business coach, and we'll address your best interests at heart. And so if we can get that done at that level, and then the phone calls come in because now the questions come up, but people have to know there's a better way. It doesn't always have to be this way.
Absolutely. Lance, I feel like I'm taking all of the conversation, but I'm really just so fascinated. I have all the questions.
No, this has been extremely interesting. I just sitting here thinking about, business first and then family and how to run it separately, but keep the family intact. And it's just
Yeah.
really, really interesting. You hit on silence, and I think that's one thing that, growing up and even now, sometimes we expect those family members to read our mind or know what we want and not really express it. And so I think that's something that's very valuable to understand, is silence is one of the biggest killers.
Well, two of my speeches you touched on. One is when mind reading is not enough. And the other one is if your kitchen table could talk. What has it heard and what would it be telling you? But I want you to know, I guess I better share something that's really important. And I hope those who are tuning into this podcast get this. And they ought to know that farmers and ranchers lie. They do. They say things like, work hard, someday this will all be yours. Or, yeah, I'm going to retire. And then there's the dreaded, oh, you don't have to worry about your brothers and sisters. They've got their jobs. They're not interested in the business. No, that's true until you're dead. So I wrote an article on another phone call that I had, and it was from a fellow who'd been farming with Dad a lot of years, paid pretty low salary because, the farm's going to be his someday. He called and, is this Jolene Brown? I said, it is. He said, I want you to know that I always thought my father's word was good, but I just found out it wasn't. Dad had left everything equally to all of the children, had never changed his will. And it was this only son of his who'd been on the farm all those years. Low pay because it's going to all be his someday. Now, when you get that kind of a phone call, the first thing I'm looking for is mental health and suicide. And, does he have a spouse? Are there friends, family who can support him? Because we can't count what he's lost and what he's got left. He's not at that stage yet. But the number of people, when I get done speaking, or I do farm shows, and when I'm done with my presentation at the big tent, then I go to whoever sponsored me, and it's like the Pied Piper. Here she comes, because all the questions are taken at the tent. And one of the funny ones at Dakota Fest, I walked in early morning, and there's life-size cutouts of me around the farm show, pointing to where the tent's going to be. And I said, this is target practice. I start collecting me. I put me into my arms and kept walking. So follow me. So, but it's when I think I must be safe enough because I'm not their neighbor and I don't go to their church and I don't go to the coffee shop, right? And so I hear their stories. Now, I don't just get the real problem, tough stories. I get the celebration stories. We don't want to keep this from happening. What can we do now? How can we get started right? Would you look at our organization for any mosquito bites we might have so we can address them so they don't become volcanic eruptions? And I love helping them make a good business even better. So consulting, what I do is the full gamut. The ones that keep me up at night are the ones where the person didn't cause the problem. They can't change the problem. They can't control the problem. They just have to live with the problem until we make a different change of what they can do. And sometimes the only thing I can do is hold a heart.
That has to be really heavy.
Yeah.
That's why I said there's also the joy filled. When I do the family business workshops, including stop the fighting on the way to the funeral home, the last point is, well, don't forget to celebrate. We are like hamsters on the wheel. We go round and round and round. We get burnt out, worn out, stressed out. And then we say to another generation, oh, come get on the wheel. So you get burnt out, worn out, stressed out. What would happen if we actually pause to applaud all that we have done? And so when we are at the family meetings, we are beginning with what's going well, what's something you appreciate about, what do you admire? Because we've got to let them know we're building on the best of what you have to make it even better. It's really important that we pause to applaud, to celebrate everything that we have done and how hard we have worked. This is where you will lose the support of a spouse, siblings, grandchildren, neighbors. It's if you don't ever pause to say, wow, thank you. I couldn't have done this without you. I'm so excited you're here. And boy, we did a lot of work today, didn't we? If you just don't pause to applaud. So I teach them what they can do to bring joy and laughter back for their health, back for the farm operation, back for the families. And when we do this intentionally, there is such a weight that gets lifted off of what it is we are addressing or need to address or need to build on, because we have made good decisions and we're going to make them even better.
Man, I feel like we could talk all day, and I know I only have you for so long, Jolene. Something that I wanted to ask for our listeners is, especially young listeners like myself, folks that are either going to take over family operations or starting their own, however that might be. But what's the first piece of advice that you would tell a young rancher who has not taken a single step towards succession planning with their family?
Well, first of all, they usually don't own those farm assets. They're coming into something that is an existing ownership by someone else. But I have prerequisites before you even get to be invited back to a family business. The first one is, what do you bring? In other words, is it agronomy? Is it herdsmanship? Is it nutrition? Is it animal health? Is it sustainability? Is it drones? What do you bring? And then the second question is, well, does the business as it exists today even need it? Just because you're good at something, does this business need it? Or are we going to expand? Are we going to cut expenses? What are we going to do? And you have to come with a business plan. Not that the generation there we hope has a business plan, but many of them don't. But you've been to college. You can sit next to the ag lender. You can go to the extension office. You can go to someone and say, show me the parts of a business plan and help me figure out, because what you're going to do is you'll be saying to those of the existing operation, this is the best of what I know about what to do. But I've missed a whole bunch of stuff because I'm not here. But if I have the privilege to be invited to be part of this, let me share with you where I think I can add value, how I can reduce your stress, how I can relieve your labor, how I can, whatever it is you can do. You got to come with a business plan. So what you bring, does the business even need it, and what will it cost? Everybody comes with their hand out. And they want health insurance, they want a pickup, they want a vehicle, they want a house to live in, they want cheap rent, they want meat, they want, liability, they want a retirement program, and ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Because the question must be answered. Does the value you will bring the business equal the cost? And I have to find out from every family unit here, what is your cost of living? If you don't know that, this can't help you. What is your cost of living? And then where's the income come from to support that? Is it Social Security or IRAs or other investment? Does all of it have to come from the farm? What's cost? And then that will tell me how many family units the business as it exists today can support. And this is why that senior generation, you've got to get them financially secure, independent from the business. Because if all of their living and livelihood has to come from that ranch that they're leaving, and we don't know if that ranch is going to be in good hands to continue, they won't relinquish it. So we've got to make sure we've got that safe. So what does it cost? And does your value equal the cost? And then you have to work for a non-family boss for at least 2 to 3 years. This is, there's about 30 lessons you learn from a non-family boss, and parents are not good teachers of them. I know you want them back in the business, and I know they can't wait to come. They've always wanted to be here, but don't shortchange this step, because when they come back, well, there's a triangle. You start out as labor, and then you manage, and then you lead. And at the pinnacle of my career, senior generation, I get to become labor again. Sometimes I just forget that, right? But the wise master gets to stay on site and have some say in how things go as well. But when you come back, you don't have to start at the lowest rung of that triangle, because you already have those experiences. You will learn what is your monetary value. You will learn that respect is earned. You're going to be accountable. And here's a real kicker. I get told time and time again at the young farmer grower rancher meetings, Jolene, I can't do anything right, but I don't even know what I'm supposed to do, but I can't do it right. Why is that? Well, they don't know their job description. Yet every other place, when for a non-family boss, they know what their job is. And I've had so many of a senior generation say, well, they grew up on this ranch. They ought to know what has to be done. I don't have to tell them. How's that working for you? Well, it's not, right? There's just so many lessons you learn. The bottom line here is don't shortchange the step. I don't want them more than 7 years gone. They tend not to come back. But I do. This is not internships, by the way. This is where you actually consistently are reporting to someone else, meeting the expectation. You will find what a bad boss is, what a good boss is. Maybe things aren't so bad at home, right? You also learn if you go home and get treated like crap, you don't have to stay there. There's other things you can do. Before you get to work in the family business, I always ask, are you still living at home? And is your mother still doing your laundry? I do not want moms and dads bringing in the kids. I want leader managers hiring really good employees who happen to be family members who earn the right through labor and management to leadership and ownership.
That's so powerful. And I mean, I think obviously it's such a magical and wonderful blessing when you have family members that want to come back and take over something that you've put your entire life into. But I feel like, and I'm sure there's just so many facets that we could discuss because it's just there's so many elements that come into play with family business. But I think one of those things that you touched on that really resonated with me is that, or at least that I keep kind of hearing, is that when family comes in, it's kind of an all hands on deck. Everybody jumps in and goes where they can to be helpful, but it's not always what are your strengths and are you contributing to that here? You know what I mean? And so that spoke to me personally, I guess. But I guess my last question, Jolene, would be it for our listeners. If somebody, is really touched by our conversation and wants to work with you, how would they go about doing that?
Well, hopefully they are part of an organization where I can come and do a presentation, such as the positives of passing it on or the top 10 mistakes that break up a family business, so that you have, and we're real careful. I always do promo videos for these events so they know what they're going to get, right? And I'll tell them that farmers and ranchers lie, and so that they know they better show up and find out what those are. The bottom line here is that if I can be, and you can bring family members to a place where you all hear things, same place, same time, then we can go home and have the premise and the basis for what we're going to do differently. Because I have to have the buy-in of the key people in that family unit before I can work with them. And then if, as it's quite often after they've heard me, they will contact me, and it's best by email, which is Jolene, Jolene @jolenebrown.com. If you just Google Jolene Brown, you'll either get me or a pole dancer. So you might want to put Jolene Brown speaker, okay? And then I will let you know that I have to send you, I think it's 7 questions that I need to have replied to me by email. So we don't waste time, because they give them an hour of my complimentary time to see if I can be of value based on what you've shared. And I'll be asking you some questions. And then if we proceed after that 1 hour, which is free, then it's an hourly rate. And then of course, if I come on site, it's travel plus the daily rate of being there. I have 27 families waiting for me right now. That doesn't mean I don't take phone calls or I don't reply. I'm always looking for suicide, depression, and mental health, because we carry these things for so long, and they need to know they're not alone. And quite often, I've had people crossing the state of Iowa driving to tell me goodbye because they were driving to Sioux Falls to kill themselves. And it was a dairy farmer from Fort Wayne, Indiana. I spoke at their dairy conference. He kept my name. So you just never know. But there are people closer to home who can help you, but I have to be there as the one of first response. Then again, it's the celebration calls. When oh my gosh, my sisters in agriculture of all ages, by the way, they call me because of something really stupid or fun, or you can't believe what I did, or you can't believe what he did to me. And so I collect the material as I go, but we all need to laugh and celebrate together. We have such worthy work to do, because I believe that agriculture is national security. I'm one mother who never wants to be dependent on another country for my family's food supply. And haven't we learned from oil and other things along the line what that means? And so we have very worthy work to do. But if we're going to do that work, you better be honoring your family by doing it right. If not, you can't sit together happily at a holiday table. And this is what we want.
Amen. Gosh, this has been just such a valuable conversation.
Yes.
I'm so glad you took the time to be with us. Lance, do you have any other questions for Jolene?
Not for the podcast. I do have a question about speaking.
So what I get all the time is this. They will call me and say, I want you to fix somebody. I came to your event. I know I brought the whole family. I want you to fix them. I said, well, I have castrated a bull, and I can inseminate a cow. Listen, I'm 5'12". My long arms have been places people can't even imagine, right? And so I like to have a lot of fun. It is through humor and the real life stories and the take home template tools that we can truly make a difference to become a business first family, to honor our family because we're doing the business right.
I love that so much. Well, if that's all that you have, Lance. That's all the questions that I have. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, Jolene, before we finish out today's podcast?
No, but I want to honor you by putting this topic as part of all the production topics that are also out there. It is so much easier to do production than it is people. And yet it's the people that do all the production. And I tell them, the more I have to deal with people, the more I like cows. Because I'm like, that old biddy, I'm sending her to market.
Now you sound like my husband.
I can't do that with moms or dads or in-laws or spouses, right? And so if we can choose to enjoy by doing it correctly or finding a better way or starting, we don't have to do everything all at once, but I'm always looking for their point of pain. What is the biggest point of pain that we can address? Because once they see, oh, that wasn't so bad, and now we can do this. And when they have the template tools, there's about 11 of them. I tell them not to do all at once, but as your point of pain, this is the first one I get in place. It's the managing people chart. So people know who's responsible, who's going to help with the work or be in charge of the work. Who do you have to consult with before you do it? Who do you have to keep informed? That's where we're starting. That's the one tool. Well, that wasn't so bad. Now they can do this and they do this. And of course, I have to always remind people, if you are a structure, and such as an LLC or CS Corp partnerships, and that document says you better have an annual meeting, you better have it. Because most of us carry umbrella liability insurance, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't personally pay for that. The farm pays for it. It happened in your state of Ohio and in Oregon. Somebody was injured in the farming operation. And the first thing they did, and they're being sued, right? They called their insurance company. We're covered, right? And the first thing the insurance agent said to them is, show me the minutes to your annual meeting. Oh, you're not acting as a corporation? You see, we insure the corporation. We don't insure individuals. And it went to the highest level of court in each state, and the one rancher and one farmer lost. So you better know what it takes to operate as a business. And hold ourselves to account, because you work so hard, but you can lose it in the blink of an eye if you haven't done things right. And you can lose people relationships in the blink of an eye if you haven't done things as a business. So let's celebrate. What do you say? You've got amazing people who are members of your organization. Let's help them make a good business even better, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so glad that our members are able to hear from you. And so thank you again for taking an hour of your very, very valuable time to talk to us and for us to get your message to members. And I really hope it resonates with them as much as it has with me. But that concludes this episode of the Beefmaster Banter. And Jolene, thank you again for joining us today.
You are welcome.
And finally, thank you to the listeners who joined us today. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and we're so excited to continue to bring you great content from the Beefmaster breed. Please know that we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Just search Beefmaster Banter. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. We can't wait to hear from you, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks.